Hello and welcome to the Jumps Racing podcast. I'm Bobby Beevers and I'll be hosting this great podcast throughout the whole of the Jumps season. I won't be alone though because I am joined by Nick Seddon. Nick, great to see you. Very much looking forward to working alongside you. I think this could be a great podcast and a real treat for the Jumps Racing fans.
Good afternoon, Bobby. It's a pleasure to be on the Jumps Racing podcast. Loads to look at over the season. We're going to be keeping a close eye on everything Cheltenham Festival and then the Grand National. But in between then, there's loads of context of the season to keep an eye on. Should be really good fun.
Just to let you know, if going forward, it's worth noting that if you want to download this, we're available on SoundCloud, Apple Music as well, or if you'd like to watch us in vision and see myself and Nick, it will be available on YouTube as well. So there's plenty of ways you can either watch or be able to listen. It's worth noting that we will be working alongside Kerry Lee. Kerry Lee, a Grade 1 winning trainer. She'll be making a few appearances on the podcast as well. And top jockey Jerry McGrath will also be with us for a couple of episodes. It's great, Nick, to have both Kerry and Jerry on board.
Yeah, really good. As you say, Kerry, a Grade 1 winning trainer. Jerry as well had a Cheltenham Festival winner with Beware the Bear back in March. So really great insight from those two. And it's dead exciting to be on YouTube as well. You can't imagine how many granny jumpers I've got ready for this. So it should be really good.
I've gone for the casual V-neck look, as you can see,
nice,
Nick.
yeah.
Do you like it, my casual V-neck? But listen, if you set off a trend, fashion icon that you are, I may be able to have a few granny jumpers along the way as well. Right, Nick, let's have a look back at what we saw over the weekend at Cheltenham. Of course, it was the opening meeting. Looking back, should I say, not looking ahead, we'll be looking ahead very shortly, but looking back on Friday, Al Dancer scoring over fences for the first time.
Yeah, we all know how good he was last year as a novice herder, really smart performer, and it was a perfect start over fences for him. He jumped really well, I thought, travelled into the race really well, and it was just a really good opening victory. Beat a couple of smart types as well in there. Getaway Trump, of course, he was a really good performer last year. It looks like Nigel Twiston-Davies has got a really smart novice chaser to go to war with. It was only his first start, but the signs are good there, and he should be one to watch this season.
Yeah, definitely keep a very close eye on Al Dancer going forward. If we look back at what we saw on Saturday, starting first with Calvados, he returned to winning ways on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he was really likeable last year, wasn't he? He was one of the stars of the novice hurdling division last season. Really made hay while the sun shined for Paul Nicholls over the winter months. 2 Grade 2 victories, a Grade 1 juvenile success at Chepstow. Won the Victor Ladorum as well at Haydock on Grand National Trials Day, and made the most of what were really testing conditions on Saturday against his own age group. Showed a brilliant attitude once Torpillo had made a mess at the last flight. So he's probably in that strange middle zone really, where he's going to be on a very high handicap mark, but might just find a couple too hot for him in Grade 1 company. So it's going to be interesting to see where he's campaigned. But Paul Nicholls, there's no one better at placing his horses than him. So he'll definitely have a productive campaign, and it was the perfect start to his season.
Some cracking performances as well, wasn't there, Nick, on Saturday? We need to mention about the gutsy St Calvados. He's 5 from 9 over fences. Now, I really like this. I actually quietly fancied him for the Arkle a few years ago. I got quite a decent price for him. Didn't quite work out on the day, but Saturday, I like what I saw.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, with front runners. They're really likeable types, and St Calvados, he's clearly one who goes very well fresh. He won a Grade 3 last year at Naas, or was it Navan? Beat Footpad. That was quite a scout for him, and this was a heck of a performance considering that he was running off a mark of 155, which means he was giving away lumps of weight. He gave away the runner-up the best part of 2 stone, knocked Nanas, another front runner, in third. He was giving him 11 pounds and shrugged him off. It was really heavy conditions, and he's another. It's going to be interesting to see where they campaign him. Is he going to go back into graded company now, or is he going to stay along the handicap route? He's not stepped above 2 miles yet since joining Harry Whittington, but you get the feeling that with it being heavy on Saturday, it might be worth trying him over 2.5 in something.
If it was up to you and you was in charge of St Calvados, what would be the route you would go down? You mentioned there about, do you go back into graded races? Do you stick with the handicap route? What would you do if you was in charge?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I thought he ran really well in the Tingle Creek last year behind Altior. He came third. He was just outclassed, pure and simply, and you get the feeling that he's going to be like that all season. So do you chuck him in one of these valuable handicaps and see if you can lump the weight, or do you try and? But perhaps they will go for something along the lines of the Ryanair later in the season, stepping up to 2.5 miles, and it's one of those. One for Harry Whittington, who I'm sure knows a lot more than I do.
To be fair, wow, just seriously, wow. He defied that career high mark on Saturday. A very good performance. Again, going forward with this one, what would the options be for him, do you think?
Now, he's really interested, isn't he? Because he joined Deborah Hamer off a mark of 81 back in, I think it was 2015. And then he went on that ridiculous run where he was mopping up everything, improved so many pounds that I couldn't even add it up properly. And then he sort of dropped off, and he resurged back to form in April when we last saw him. He's won again on Saturday, and you'd think that mark now will go into the mid 150s. So do they step him into graded company? Do they target something like the Stayers hurdle? I think it's a grade 2 at Newbury at the end of November, beginning of December. Do they go for something like the Long Walk? You wonder whether they see him as a potential to improve further like Paisley Park, or whether they try and exploit one of these valuable handicaps with him.
Yeah. You know what I would go? We're just talking about Stayers hurdle. The staying race at Haydock. I think it's on Betfair Chase Day, didn't it? Because Sam Spinner won that a couple of years ago, and that's like a bit of a stepping stone, isn't it, towards the staying hurdle race. So personally, if it's not seen as too soon, I'll probably go to Haydock with him.
Yeah, it's a very good shout. I suppose with Haydock, it is just the fact that we never know what the ground's going to be like. He's just had a really attritional run in heavy conditions on Saturday. If the rain comes like we know it will at Haydock, it might suit him to the ground anyway.
Just going to talk about a few others on Saturday. Obviously, very conscious of the time then here, so we're just going to quickly rattle through these. But Ramsey Zatei for David Piper and Tom Scudamore, novice hurdle winner on Saturday.
Yeah, that was really good to see, wasn't it? Because he was a staying chaser to follow last season, ran really well in the Welsh National, and then was pulled up in the Grand National. This looked like a perfect opportunity for a pipe opener. He showed how smart he is by winning as well as he did. He's going to be on a mark of 153 over fences this year. You've got to think it's going to be interesting to see where they send him, but Beecher or Welsh National's got to be the next protocol for him, you'd think.
Slate House was back in the winners' enclosure on Saturday. Let's not forget it was in the winners' enclosure at this meeting 2 years ago as well. I hope this will kickstart his season if I'm being 100% honest. And just the final one as well, in the bumper, time flies by for Nicky Henderson and Barry Geraghty. He's won on debut, and I think it could be a very nice type to go with this season.
Yeah, we'll tie him in with another one in a moment, but yeah, £88,000 purchase. Powerful colours, JP McManus, powerful connections, looks a terrific prospect considering that he showed plenty of pace in what was attritional conditions. And then the day later I was at Aintree, as we mentioned, for Old Roan Chase Day, and the mare's bumper was won by one from the Harry Fry yard, White Hart Lady. She looked in a different league to them that day. She looks another good prospect against her own sex.
Yeah, definitely does indeed. So that's our review then. Just looking back at Friday and Saturday at Cheltenham. The whole idea of this Jumps Racing podcast, though, is to constantly look forward. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Now, it's a huge day of racing on Saturday in West Yorkshire. And Nick, just want to talk about the weather. I was supposed to be working at Doncaster on Saturday. Of course, that fell to the weather. However, that night I did see the huge puddles on the track at Wetherby, so I was deeply concerned. I spoke to John Joe Sanderson. I phoned him up. He said they're not concerned. If you've seen the recent pictures as well, it's been dry. It is clearing, and at the moment, Nick, they're saying it's soft, good to soft in places.
Yeah, it sounds ideal, doesn't it? I saw the pictures that Cornelius Lysett tweeted yesterday from John Joe Sanderson at Wetherby, and how it was waterlogged earlier in the week, and it seems to have cleared up really well, and it looks like it's going to be ideal conditions for the Charlie Hall, and hopefully the field doesn't cut up too much, because we could have a real cracking renewal this year.
We certainly can, indeed. With the greatest respect to last year, only the 4 turned up. Obviously, the ground, it was a lot quicker than what we're used to at Wetherby. And I felt sorry for John Joe, in all fairness, Nick, because he did actually say to me that there was constantly watering from beginning of September, because like this year where we've had too much rain, if you like, last year we had very little indeed. So hopefully that's the end of the rain. I think it's due again on Friday, but only in small drizzles. But hopefully the Charlie Hall meeting will go ahead. We're going to have a look now to quite a few of these in detail alongside Nick. Nick will start first with Elegant Escape. Now, he won the Welsh Grand National last year, and I think he's got a good chance. I'll tell you why, because he's got that all-important record fresh. I think he's won twice on his seasonal debut, and that included last season at Sandown.
Yeah, he was really good last year, wasn't he, winning the Welsh National the way he did. Staying is very much his game. Yeah, he's all about the staying. The only thing that gets me with him is that the Charlie Hall is at 3 miles, and if you mention it's good to soft, I just wonder whether it might be a little bit too sharp for him and they're just using this as a platform to defend his crown in the Welsh National. But we know Colin Tizard is more than capable of sending one out ready first time out. He's going to be ready for this, and he's 4-1 joint favourite at the moment, so he's got every chance.
Won it a fair few years ago as well, Colin Tizard, with a certain cue card. Black Corton for Paul Nicholls and Bryony Frost. Of course, Black Corton second in the race 12 months ago. And I think the thing to take out of Black Corton, the partnership between Bryony and Black Corton has been phenomenal, and that really made a name for Bryony as well when she was up and coming.
Yeah, it's hard not to like. I treat Black Corton and Frodon in the same sort of thing, because Bryony seems to build up such a brilliant rapport with the rides that she gets on a regular basis, and he was a star, wasn't he, in 27-18 Black Corton, that big sequence of wins that stemmed all the way back in the summer, which wasn't usual for a Grade 1 winning novice chaser. And then last year he seemed to be a bit of a bottom topper, in that he was contesting all of these big prizes and just coming up short. But he rolled back to form in the summer in the Galway Plate. That was a heck of a run to finish second off a monumental weight. He's going to arrive here fresh, and I get the feeling that he's a bit like Bristol Demai, and that he's got more chance of taking these graded prizes earlier in the season when he's striking the iron hot than he will later in the season. So this could be a really good opportunity for him to pick up a big success.
At the time of recording, I am seeing money coming in for the Warren Greatrex mare La Bague War. She won the listed mares race 2 years ago on this day. You know what, Nick? You look at this horse, she was absolutely outstanding this year. You can see why people, are placing the bets on her. I think she's got an outstanding chance.
Yeah, I don't think I like many horses in training more than this mare, La Bague Ra. She was brilliant last year. The way that she won at Kempton, that Grade 1 race, that attitude from the front. She's another that built up a real rapport with her regular rider, the champ Richard Johnson. Imagine he's going to keep the ride here. I don't know if he's booked to go to Ascot or not, but she's going to have a brilliant chance. She's going to be receiving weight from the boys as well to boot, and it's not out of the realm of possibility as a second season chaser that there could be more to come from her yet either.
Ballyoptic, hopefully Ballyoptic will stand his ground. He won the Towton Novices Chase back in 2018. Tom Bellamy was on board that day. Now, he was very impressive last time out at Chepstow. A repeat of that performance, Nick, something similar. Again, you can't rule out.
Oh, definitely. He's probably one of those Ballyoptic. I remember a few seasons ago, he was always noted as a staying hurdler to follow, and he probably hasn't won as much as he should have done throughout his season, but he definitely he has bags of ability, and he was really good at Chepstow last time, arrives here fit, and ought to be bang there in this sort of race. Yeah, definitely.
And talking of definitely, we have Definitely Red looking to defend his crown. He was victorious in the race last year, and he's got a good record at Wetherby in general. Of course, he won the Roland Merrick a couple of years ago. I remember that very well. Henry Brook rode him that day because Daddy Cook was on the second in Wakanda. We talk about the ground, the soft, good to soft, perfect for Definitely Red.
Perfect. He's another one who you would imagine will be aiming to hit the ground running this season. He did very much the same thing last year, won this race, went on to win the Many Clouds race at Aintree on Beta Chase Day. He's going to be spot on for this. The vibes are good from the connections. Particularly if a couple of these come out, a few of them have multiple entries, you think he's going to be bang there, Definitely Red, and it'd be no surprise to see him go off as favourite.
Sticking with the Northern Train horses as well, Nick, Top Ville Ben will definitely line up. I spoke to Phil Kirby a few weeks ago. This has been the target for him for some time. He's 3 from 6 chases. He has got the course and distance form in the book, but with the greatest respect, you could say that race fell apart.
Yeah, he's come a long way quickly, hasn't he? It was hard not to be impressed with him last year with that course and distance win. I think it was 41 lengths he won by, or something outrageous.
Yeah, there were horses getting pulled up, a lot of falls. He beat the McKeesby horse, Sam Gunner, so I think only 2 finish, if I've got that right.
But at the same time, you can only beat, I suppose, what's put in front of you. And then, I go back to that effort at Aintree that he signed off with last year. It was no mean feat to finish as close as he did. Lost in translation, won that race. I think it was top of the game in second. He was only beaten 7 lengths. He was a length behind the Nichols horse in second. That's a really good effort, and he's going to be spot on for this. Phil Kirby's bullish about his chances, as we'll hear a bit later on, expecting a big run from Top Ville Ben.
And what do you think about ASO for Venetia Williams? Ran an absolute cracker at the Cheltenham Festival behind Frodon. Phenomenal performance. Just thinking, though, does it need a bit more juice in the ground?
Yeah, he seems to thrive at Cheltenham, doesn't he? Storming effort to finish second in the Ryanair. He was third the year before. Just wonder whether this is being used as a pipe opener for him, and whether 3 miles is his game. I'm not sure. Other targets might be more important later down the season.
What we're going to do now, then, before we look ahead to the West Yorkshire Hurdle, which we mentioned the Charlie Hall, should the vast majority of these turns up, looks to be an absolute cracker. You can say the same for the West Yorkshire Hurdle as well. Before we preview, though, that Grade 2 hurdle race as well, we're going to hear now from Phil Kirby. I spoke to him a while back, and we spoke about the treble on the card 12 months ago and how he thinks Top Ville Ben will go on in the Charlie Hall. So, Phil, if we talk about what happened 12 months ago on Charlie Hall Day, you had a treble on the card.
Yeah, it was a great day. Obviously, our local track where we want to have winners, and they were all nice winners, and it was a good start to the jump season anyway.
You had a great season last year over the jumps as well. Do you think that treble on Charlie Hall Day kind of kick-started it for you?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. We had probably had quite a few nice horses ready to go early enough on. And obviously they all kicked on there, and he definitely set the stall out for having a good season. I'm sure he did.
Top Ville Ben then lines up in the Charlie Hall. How's he been at home since?
No, he's been great. Everything's gone perfectly to plan so far. He's been quite settled for him. He used to be a bit of a handful, but he's relaxing now, and he's a lot nicer to deal with at home. All preparations have gone good. I'm looking forward to it. I hope he can compete to that level, and we can have some more good days out with him.
How do you assess the competition with potentially what's lining up, Phil?
I suppose on ratings he'll have £10 or £15 to find with a couple of the best ones, which is a big ask. But if we want to compete where we want to take him going forwards, then he's going to have to be competitive. Whether he wins or not is a bit of a big ask. But if he can go and hold his own, and hopefully we can step forward from Saturday. And he has got the course and distance form in the book out. I was there that day. Was it impressive? Yeah, he was impressive. Obviously, a different level than what he's at on Saturday, but his jumping was good. He'd had a busy enough time as well because he'd fallen at Cheltenham and then obviously went to Aintree after Wetherby, so we kept him busy at the back end, and hopefully a nice freshening up and go there with a chance of running a good race anyway.
Very competitive card on Saturday at Wetherby. Have we got anything else entered in other races at all?
Obviously, Lady Buttons runs in the mares race that she won last year. She should have a favourites chance. Hopefully she's as good as she was last year. Everything suggests that she's in good form and she's done plenty of work, so I'm looking forward to getting started with her mainly.
That's brilliant, that, Phil. Thank you very much for your time, buddy. So I spoke to Phil Kirby, as we've just heard there, about the chance of top Ville Ben, and also about that great day at the office 12 months ago, which Nick was phenomenal. He got a treble on the card.
Yeah, it was really good for him, wasn't it? You could say that it really put him on the map for the season. That it was a notable treble in front of the ITV cameras, and he went on to have a really good time of things last year, and hopefully he can do the same on Saturday.
Hopefully he will be able to as well. Right, then let's look ahead to the West Yorkshire Hurdle there, the Grade 2 on the card. You know what I mean, Harry. You know, Harry Fry did absolute wonders with this horse when he did get hold of him. Very much looking forward to seeing him turn up on Saturday. Previously won the Stayers Hurdle for a second time at Punchestown, so he's got a 100% record over at that track in Ireland. And I'm hopeful for a big run here on Saturday, Nick.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see him line up here. I really hope he does. And he's fascinating, isn't he? Because he threatened to dominate this division back in 2016-17. Yeah. The only blip, and it wasn't really a blip, was when he was third in the Stayers when favourite. And then he's been cold more than hot since. You know, he very much disappeared out of people's minds. But crikey, he roared back into them when he won at Punchestown. He's run well fresh in the past, and this looks a really good opportunity. But he is pushing 12 now.
Yeah, he's not getting any younger, is he? What about Ballyandy for the Nigel Twiston Davis yard? I was actually there when he won the feature at Utoxeter back in January. Didn't have the best prep coming into the race, what we saw last time out, also at Chepstow. But if you look at the credentials, you know, Betfair Hurdle winner, champion, bumper winner, you know, should he be on song, gives him a great chance.
Yeah, exactly. There's no doubt that Ballyandy's got ability. 2016 champion bumper winner, and then he strikes me as one who has never really found his niche since, because he's been tried in multiple things. You know, where they went down, he's fourth in the Supreme, won the Betfair Hurdle, but chasing really wasn't his forte the year after, and then was sort of just thrown into things last year. I always got the impression this clearly was the plan, but his effort to finish third in the Coral Cup was excellent, and they now step him up to 3 miles. It's fascinating to see him here. I think if the stamina holds, he's clearly got the ability to serve this up to, you know what I mean, Harry, at the very least.
Yeah, very much agree with those thoughts there, Nick. Just looking at the rest of the entries, depending on what will turn up on Saturday, the interesting one for me has to be LeBroy, who won the 4 mile at Cheltenham. Now, he had a season last year where he was just running over the fences, campaigned for chasing, and he's going to make his seasonal debut over the hurdles. I don't quite know what to make of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I've got on mine as well. Really interesting to see him entered in this. You just wonder if there's a plot going on here, whether they're thinking about his mark at the moment, because he won the National Hunt Chase at the Cheltenham Festival. We know that stamina is his forte. This looks a really good opportunity for a pipe opener. But at the same time, he's got the ability to get involved over this trip. It's going to suit him. So yeah, he's fascinating to be chucked into the mix, and he's 7-1 at the time of recording. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, it looks a cracking renewal, to say the least. You know what I mean, Harry Ballyandy, we just said there about LeBroy. Let's have a look at what's happening over at Down Royal. This is the champion chase. It's a race I've always been a big fan of, and I say every year, Nick, that I'm going to go over to Down Royal, but work always takes me to Wetherby for the Charlie Hall, and hold me to this, I will go 1 year. I will definitely go 1 year for the champion chase. Just look at the entries here. It's dominated by Jigginstown, isn't it?
It is. You know, this is a brilliant 2-day meeting, as we've said, and every year there seems to be some big names in here, and the champion chase is no exception. There's 12 entered at the moment. Of course, the very nature of Irish racing, 8 of them are from Gigginstown, a bit like Aidan O'Brien, isn't it, really, on the flat. You get the feeling that it's almost certainly going to cut up, but the ones that Gigginstown have put in there are really strong. There's some big names in there, you know, Delta Work, Mengley Carnes, Shattered Love, Balco de Flo. So whatever they decide to send is going to be interesting. And then we've also got the added flair of an English train runner in there as well.
Yeah, certain Clanders Obo, of course. Paul Nichols has got a fine record in this race. He's won it 4 times in the past. Twice, 2 of those, should I say, was with a certain Corto Star. I think that was like 08 and 2010, if I've got that right. His previous win, I believe, was in 2012, and that was Corto Stone. Do you think Clanders Obo will make the trip over the water?
I was surprised to see him entered. In hindsight, knowing that Paul Nicholls, as we've said earlier in the pod, is so good at placing his horses in these races, it would be a really interesting platform for him to push off. He's certainly good enough to win this.
Yeah.
I had it in mind that he was going to go to the Betfair Chase, so it's really interesting to see him entered, and hopefully he does make the trip over the Irish Sea.
What do you think then? Do you think maybe this just for a bit of a prep, blow away the cobwebs, do you think?
I think so. You'd think he'd be heading towards the King George. That would be the main aim this season for him, to defend that crown and then push on and hopefully go again in the Gold Cup. But yeah, it could be a really, because we know with the Gigginstown runners, we could see 6 dropping out here. He could find himself with a really good opportunity to pick up a Grade 1 and some really valuable prize money, which is Paul Nicholls' absolute skill, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his forte, isn't it? Paul Nicholls looking to win the Champion Chase for a 5th time. Now, just before we sign off for our first Jumps Racing podcast here, Nick, over the weekend you caught up with Paul Ferguson.
We did, yeah. He's the author of Jumpers to Follow, which is, I'm sure you're all aware, he's been on this podcast in the past. It's a brilliant book. He highlights 40 horses to follow throughout the season. There's plenty of other things in there as well, pointers and highlights. He's very kindly given us a book to give away on the Twitter feed, so make sure you keep an eye out for the new feed at @horseracingnet_. They will be there on about Thursday afternoon. And I spoke to Paul at Aintree on Old Road Chase Day on Sunday. He gave me 3 horses to follow, and I also grilled him for some season predictions. It's Old Roan Chase Day at the time recording, and I've got the author of Jumpers to Follow, Paul Ferguson, with me to just chat about the upcoming season. Good afternoon, Paul.
Afternoon, Nick. Nice to see you.
I suppose we'll start with the book. It's out now. Do you just want to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, it's in its 13th year now, Jumpers to Follow. It was almost something I'd done as a hobby to begin with, a bit of a labour of love. 4 years ago, Wetherby's became involved with the book, which just took the publication to another level, I think, in terms of how it looks. And basically, it's a look ahead to the season. The main premise of the book is my 40 leading prospects for the season. Then there's tons of other bits inside. Horse to follow from Ireland, pointers, a look around the yards, which I think there's 59 yards in there this year, which people often get confused thinking that stable tours. They're actually my views from each stable. So there's plenty in there anyway. And I say there's the only content that's not from myself is there's 8 contributing jockeys now.
Oh, great. And is it 40, 50 horses to follow in there?
In the leading prospects, it's 40. They're my top 40, yeah.
And of the 40, you very kindly agreed to talk through 3 of them for us, beginning with one from the Nicky Henderson yard, who could be a real good prospect this season.
Yeah, Chantry House. Seen him win as point in Ireland. Bought soon after for the best part of 300 grand by JP McManus. He made his debut at Warwick. I think it was towards the end of the season. I think it was March in the end. But he'd actually he was declared the 2 previous Saturdays at Kempton and Newbury, I think it was, and he was pulled out due to the ground, which kind of indicated that Nicky Henderson holds him in pretty high regard and was waiting until everything was in place before he let him go. And I was mightily impressed. He was sent off, I think he was sent off odds on in the end. He's clearly, obviously, showing up well at home, but just the way he travelled through the race, did it with ease, and I'd expect him to develop into a high-class 2.5 mile novice hurdle this year.
Do you think he'll start off at 2 miles?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Nicky Henderson does do that. I wouldn't be surprised if he started off maybe at one of the Monday meetings at Kempton. He normally unleashes one of his good ones, or either that or the Hennessy meeting, or sometimes if Beevers goes up to Newcastle, you've seen it before, he often sends another JP McManus horse up for the maiden hurdle up there on Fighting 5th Day. So I'd be looking towards the end of November with him. And then if he came out and won well, I already had it in my head that maybe he's possibly one for the Challow hurdle over Christmas at Newbury.
Lovely. So we'll go from the Nicky Henderson yard to Colin Tizard, and there's another one here that you think could really grow into a good prospect.
Yeah, Eldorado Allen. Last time we seen him actually was here at Aintree when he didn't get any further than the first hurdle. He was bumped sideways, and poor Tom O'Brien was unshipped out the saddle. The horse that was actually caused that incident was the Grand Vizier, who went on to win at Royal Ascot. But he was odds on that day on the back of a hugely impressive success at Sandown. On his British debut. I'd seen him run an O'Toy on his start before he joined Collins Hazard, and he jumped particularly well round there, and his jumping was fantastic at Sandown. There was a horse to finish second to him called Severano, who was one of mine to follow last year, and he took about 3 lengths out of him at the second last. So I think in time he will be a chaser, but with the limited experience, I think he'll stay over hurdles for now. He's on a mark of 145, which there's been positive vibes coming out of the Tizard yard saying they think he's well handicapped. So I'm not sure whether the Great Wood will come too soon for him, because they're saying probably towards the end of November he might be out. But wherever he comes out, I think he's capable of landing a nice handicap, and you never know, he meant to end up in one of the Champion Hurdle trials after that, because behind the likes of Beevers there in England is probably pretty thin on the ground in that division. So it wouldn't be beyond all realms of possibility that he could end up as a graded hurdler this year, but maybe in a year's time as a novice chaser. I just think he's got plenty of scope for the big fences.
Lovely. And last but not least, there is a horse from the Rebecca Curtis yard, and this sort of could be quite a nice story.
Yeah, Manella Bobo. Sadly, similar connections to Drover's Lane, who they lost and won't be seen again. He ran in the race on this card last year, and I thought this might have been a starting point for Manella Bobo, but he hasn't been entered. I did catch up with Rebecca at Chepstow recently, and she did say he should be out before too long, and he will be going straight over fences. He's currently rated 126, so he's probably not the class of the other two we've talked about, but I do think he's well handicapped. He travelled well in his races, and he finally got off the mark at Stratford towards the end of last season, and Ferrabin of Dan Skelton's came down early, so he probably didn't have much to beat that day, but he went round in a common canter. And as I say, I think he could take a big step forward, so he's probably one to look out for in novice handicap chases from 2 mile 6 beyond. And as I say, I'd like to think he could win a couple before the handicap. I might catch up with him.
Okay, great. And before we wrap this up, I thought I'd spring something on you. With it being the first episode of the podcast, it's the season preview. So I've scribbled down 5 quick-fire questions. You're only allowed to answer yes or no.
All right.
And we'll see how we go. The first one is, will Altior and Surname happen in the Christie Chase?
Yes.
Will Altior win the King George?
Yes.
Another Betfair chase of Bristol de Mai?
No.
Will we see a new winner of the Gold Cup?
Yes.
And last but not least, a bit different, Nicky Henderson or Paul Nicholls?
Oh God, that's a tough one.
For the trainer's title.
Yeah, for the trainer's title. Yeah. All right, so didn't want to upset anyone when I'm trying to get information off them. Nicky Henderson.
Lovely speaking to you, Paul, and hope we catch up soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Nick.
So that was Paul Ferguson at Aintree, giving us 3 horses to follow and a few predictions as well to boot. And hopefully the all 40 have roaring seasons and the book proves a great success.
Yeah, hopefully it will. Paul's a great lad as well. You know, the amount of preparation, homework he puts into studying jumps racing, and not just throughout the jump season, if you like, through the autumn and winter months, but he does it all year round. Doesn't he? And very kindly, he has donated a book for the competition that we can run here on the podcast. Right then, that's the end of the first one, the Jumps Racing podcast. Great to work with you, Nick. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, really good fun, and hopefully, that's going to be the first of many. We're going to see plenty of us over the winter, and hopefully, we get plenty of clues building up to Cheltenham, and it proves to be a really good season.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it all. Don't forget you can listen on SoundCloud, also on Apple Music too. And if you want to watch us, it will be available on YouTube. We'll be back. That's it. I like what you did there. That's a great way to end it. Great stuff. We're going to be back next week. Make sure you tune in. We'll review what we saw over the weekend, over the jumps. Plus, we'll be looking ahead to the at Wincanton, which features the Badger Ales Chase.
Cheers, Bobby. See you next week.